Thank you, thank you.
Cumpleaños feliz. Oh, okay, we don't have to.
I've never had happy birthday on a stage, so this is a
We're
first.
not going to be bilingual today. Take it away, Zach. Happy birthday, man.
Great, great. Well, thank you everybody for coming out. Today I will be talking about how to build a great asynchronous team. And just so you know, an Easter egg in my presentation, I based my slides on a recently really popular TV show, but I'm legally not allowed to say it out loud. So if you happen to recognize some of the images, just give me a thumbs up so I know all my time doing that was worth it. To get started, who am I and why am I qualified to talk about asynchronous work? So in 2018, I started a small digital marketing agency called Galactic originally just with a focus on helping companies grow their paid media and SEO, so mainly startups to begin with. Over the last 7 years, I've grown the company to about 150 people, and we have employees in 31 countries around the world. So we do paid media, SEO, we build websites, email marketing, that sort of stuff. I'm sure you guys have all encountered a digital marketing agency. There's a lot of us out there. And as I built this company, I was really big on remote work early, and I felt compelled to build async processes into the business, more out of necessity than anything. And so I had to sort of come up with my own playbook for running it, since there wasn't anything out there at the time. So I'm going to share some of that with you today. So to start, for a refresher, if anyone needs it, on what asynchronous work is, the classical definition is just any type of work where two or more people are doing their work, not at the same time as each other. I think probably at this conference, what of us think of as working across different time zones. Maybe you have a team in the Philippines and you're based in the States and you don't want to do calls at midnight, so you need to figure out a way to get things done and not be on calls all the time. But I like to think of async work also from not just like we have to do it, we have to figure it out, but what are the advantages this offers? And I come back to this essay written by Paul Graham, who's the guy who founded Y Combinator, the famous Silicon Valley startup incubator. And he writes these really great essays about entrepreneurship and startups and venture capital and stuff. And he had this one that I love called Maker Time versus Manager Time. And in that, for him, the makers are the startup founders, the creatives, the programmers, the designers. But anyone in this audience is a maker at different points in your job. You know, maybe you're sitting down to build something new. And for him, the managers are the financiers, the venture capitalists. And they always want to meet with the startup founders. And for them, 30 minutes is just 30 minutes. And you can fit your creative time whenever in the day. But for the makers of us, we need these long, uninterrupted blocks of time to get things done, to really go deep, to like have the RAM in your mind that holds everything there all at once. So I've found that giving my team time back by canceling a bunch of these kind of status update calls and stuff has allowed us to have more maker time, which has been really valuable. And with that, though, I've had to make sure we understand how to prevent that maker time from becoming gym time, beach time, me time, whatever I want to do, Reddit time. So I'm going to share a bit about how to make sure your people are staying on track. I also want to cover a few areas where async doesn't work, and these are parts that I've learned myself. Any customer-facing jobs will be tough. You can't tell your sales prospects or your clients that you'll only meet with them on 2:30 p.m. on Wednesday afternoons. So you need to be adaptable for that. Emotional topics can be tough. In particular, I think one-on-ones are important. I've learned that that's something you really can't make async. People need that sort of emotional nuance when they want to say things like, you know, I'm uncomfortable in my career, or I'm excited for this new thing, or something bad happened in my personal life. Urgent and unpredictable events, if your warehouse is on fire, if you got a notice you're about to get sued, if a reporter wants to go live with a piece about you, you probably need to do a faster sync than just async. And then these sort of bonding and brainstorming topics as well, when you need that like electricity flying off and people collaborating and quick ideas, I think that can be really helpful to do non-async as well. And I want to talk about some common async myths that we have. And I want to caveat that all of these behind me are 100% true if you don't build your async company the right way. And I've seen this a lot, in particular, all the things up here from my fellow marketing agency friends and other entrepreneurs and business owners who are doing really great when they're scaling from the 0 to 20 employee mark. You know, because that's like about the amount of people you can fit in a virtual room. You can hop on calls with them and explain things. But once they get beyond that point, they really struggle to help scale their culture and scale how they do things, because you might hire 10 really great people, but they might do the things 10 different ways, and you want them to have it done the Galactic Fed way, in my case, or your company's way. But I also want to talk about some good things async offers. We already spoke about a bit the talent aspect. This is something that all remote offers, right? You can, rather than drawing a line around Austin, Texas, and only hiring people from there, you can draw, in the classical remote sense, vertical line around all of the Americas and hire anyone from there if they can work on your time. But async lets you expand that to the entire world, and you can hire people wherever they are, and you can get some really great people, and I've had that at Galactic Fed. For bandwidth, we talked about the maker time. You're giving people back time to get things done instead of sitting in calls. And then finally, building an async company kind of forces you to build really durable systems that aren't personality dependent. Because you can't be like, oh, every time a new salesperson joins, Michelle just hops on a call and spends a few hours walking them through. You have to make sure that you're not dependent on that. So you need blueprint docs and that sort of stuff. Anyways, let's get into it. The core mindset shift going into an async setup: documentation is going to be more important than discussion. You want things written down. You want blueprint documents. You want people to understand in writing how to do things. Deliverables are more important than meetings. Rather than having a weekly sync for a project, at Galactic Fed, we do weekly project deliverables. So at 2 p.m. on a Wednesday or whatever, it might be, that's when you need to submit this thing, and then we all discuss it. And then finally, as I spoke about, accountability systems is going to be way more important than just daily stand-ups, watching what people do and observing them. You need a way to track what they do and understand their outputs. So let's get into how to design your async team. How do we communicate? How do we track results? How do we build a great culture? It all comes down to documentation. So when I first started this company, for the first 2 or 3 years, as we were scaling pretty fast, I had a lot of weird cookie rules. And one of them was that everyone had to spend 10% of their time writing documentation. So this was typically about 4 hours per week on Friday afternoons. People would figure out something in their workflow that they could document. And that allowed us to scale a lot faster. Because rather than having to hop on the phone and explain things, we could just share the doc for, okay, this is how we onboard a new client. This is how we onboard a new team member. This is how we celebrate somebody's birthday. This is how we let somebody go. And over time now, we have blueprint documents for everything we do within Galactic Fed. And it's really great because when someone new joins, we ask them to take a look at that and bring the knowledge from outside of my company and be like, I don't understand why you do it this way. Maybe we could change the blueprint in this other way. But regardless, this helps solve that situation I was talking about where people will have a hard time scaling past the 20 employee mark, because now you can hire 50 Google Ads managers or whatever, and rather than having 50 different approaches, you have the one Galactic Fed way to do it. Another really important part of async work is time tracking software. Our conference sponsored Time Doctor out here is a good option for that. I'll talk about time tracking software in a few slides. And then the last 3 bubbles here, it's important to have a really well-defined stack for your project management. For us, that happens to be ClickUp. People use Asana, people use Trello. That's sort of the spine of how we organize things. Then within that, we have the context of Google Docs, Google Sheets, Loom videos for a more personal touch. And then finally, Slack is sort of the, how you doing, happy birthday, here's the thing you're looking for. I think one of the hardest things for us to let go, this hangover habit from in an office that we take to a remote work environment, and then especially tough to let go as you move to async, is our internal update calls, or internal calls in general. And another weird rule that I did for the first few years at Galactic Fed is every single employee, up to when we had like 100 people or more, had to ask me, the CEO, for explicit written permission to schedule any new internal recurring call. And originally I did this just to get rid of these status update type things, just to karate chop those as they came. But a side benefit is that I got a really great look at what types of calls people consider important. And that's how I got the slide from earlier where I said where async is weak. That's actually just from observation that I got. People really push back and were like, Zach, I need to do these one-on-ones with my team at least once a week or at least once a month. When we're having something emotional, need to hop on the phone. When something's urgent, we might need more syncs. If it's brainstorming, we might need to do recurring calls. And it's important to define which ones make sense for your company. Another kind of weird thing we do at Galactic Fed, but I like a lot, is every 3 months, recurring calls are automatically deleted off people's calendars with plenty of heads up, so it doesn't just disappear. What I've found is this gives people the out and the impetus to say, okay, we've been doing this weekly. Maybe we can do it bi-weekly now. Maybe we can do it monthly. Maybe we can cancel it. And I think we've all been on a call for like a year or two with 4 people. That's every month or quarter. And you're kind of like, I don't know why I'm doing this anymore. And no one wants to suggest you quit it. This gives you the option for that. Some good information on this slide. I'm going to focus on one part, which is the time tracking software component. This can be difficult to implement for companies that haven't done it yet, because as you can imagine, it feels a little big brother when you have to submit every 5 or 15 minutes of your time and what you're doing. But I counter that with telling, especially if you're doing an async team, that this is an important piece of the responsibility that I'm giving you. I'm giving you this maker time to spend your time how you think gives you the best results. What you must give me back is a clear accountability of what you're doing with that time. And we have our managers review time cards every week from every person on their team, and they spend hours doing this and really comparing how people are budgeting their time. Because time is money, literally, like that's the investment that you're making as a business. And we found not only does this help people keep accountable and make them actually, not pad their hours or dodge what exactly they're working on and be a bit more honest, it also helps us compare across teams. So let's use an example again. I run a marketing agency. Let's say I have people building meta ads accounts. And on average, it takes someone 5 hours to do that. And we have one employee named Mary who takes 2 hours to do those on average. And Joseph takes 10 hours to do that on average. So for Mary, this might mean she's doing things too fast. She's rushing, she's sloppy, or maybe she found some genius new solution we can learn from. For Joseph, he's almost certainly a perfectionist and taking too long. But if we didn't have the time cards to compare that, all we'd know is Mary tends to get bad results. It's, she doesn't do things well, and Joseph never hits his deadlines. So the time tracking software component really helps us get that and do that. Next few slides, let's talk about culture. How do we hire people in an async environment? How do we onboard them? And how do we help them become friends and get to know each other, even though they're not talking on the phone much? So in my humble opinion, this slide might be the most important in my presentation, because I think that you could say this for remote, but especially async, you really need to hire a different type of person than the type of person who's comfortable in an office. There's different things you look for. A lot more autonomy, self-starter type of attitude is important, especially if they're managing their own time. And 2 parts of the slide that I really care about is the written assessment and the scary sounding threat of reference check. So let's start with the written assessment. Every position at Galactic Fed has a written assessment as the most important part of their job application. And it's typically a mock situation. So let's use a sales representative, for example. They're applying for a job at Galactic Fed to be a salesperson. We would give them a packet of sample client information of a prospective client. It's a fake company. It might say their marketing budget, the types of channels they want to run on, their marketing experience in the past, their goals, etc. And we asked the prospective candidate to spend about an hour digesting that packet and coming back to us with questions they'd want to ask, a game plan for that business, and just an overall update of how they would approach the situation. And then if they graduate and do well to move on to the next stage from the written assessment, the hiring manager would then be pretending to be that client, and we do a mock interview situation where we're pretending to be the client, they're pretending to be the salesperson, and we get a real life scenario of how that looks. And what I've found is, if you're going to be async, you're going to do a lot in writing, probably more than you're going to be on the phone, probably with these people. So you need a good sample of how they organize their logic in writing, how they communicate, can they spell well, do they give the most in writing, or are they very terse and short? And I think this is super helpful to see because, again, this is the only writing sample you're going to get from them as it relates to your company. I think another side benefit we've gotten from this is seeing some people just don't want to do an hour-long written assessment. They're totally fine doing an hour-long interview, but they don't want to do a written assessment. And for that, we say that's totally fine. Like, I get it. It's annoying. It's like an IQ test in a way. But if you want to work in an async environment, we need to see that proof that you have like the gumption and you'll roll up your sleeves and actually sort of prove to us that you care enough to have that real responsibility of not having us checking in with you on the phone often. Another thing I want to chat about too is the threat of reference check. I learned this from a business school professor of mine at Stanford named Graham Weaver, who runs a big private equity firm. But basically how this works at Galactic Fed is every person who's applying to work here, we give them an intake form. It has normal stuff, resume, name, etc. But one part of it is a grid with 5 rows, and we ask them to please name your 5 most recent managers, when they managed you at what companies, and then when we speak with them, how will they rate you on a 1 to 10 scale and why? So we have their contact information of these people, and we're asking how they would rate them. And at the bottom, we say, we intend to ask you for 3 references, and we'll speak with those people most likely, but we reserve the right to contact anybody on this list of your 5 most recent managers if we feel we need more information. With a caveat that if one's their father-in-law or mother-in-law or they, current manager, that's fine, and they can carve that out. And what we found is this forces people to be more honest, because if you know that you can't say you got $10 million results on that one thing when you actually got $1 million, because we might call the person who is managing you when that happened and ask about that, you're probably going to be a lot more truthful. And it's helpful to just make that happen, because in an async environment, you really want to get a third-party check on the talent that's coming in to see you. And you get a lot of interesting information on the margins here, too, with this threat of reference check thing. Because what if at the end of the process, you get your 3 references they want you to speak with, and you realize, wow, interesting, none of these people have managed this person in the last 10 years. That's kind of fishy, right? Why are they only wanting me to speak with people that are from forever ago, not more recent people? So you can just kind of learn some interesting contextual information there by this threat of reference check process. So for onboarding, guys, onboarding these people that you've worked really hard to hire, that you've given them the written assessment and the threat of reference check and all this stuff. Some good thoughts on this slide. I want you to just take away the sentiment that you need to overinvest up front for your asynchronous team, because these people are not going to get nearly as much phone time. They're not going to get nearly as much team time as a traditional remote employee who may have daily stand-ups or whatever it may be. So you want to get that good first impression. And what we found works really well for Galactic Fed with this is we make a really detailed 100-day plan. And this has everything from like a 20-page PDF, all about our company's culture, founding story, who we are, why we're like space themed. That's a story for another time. And just get a good insight of like who we are, how we work, the people they need to speak with as well. And not only do we have just a framework of like who we are, what we do, who to talk with, but we also say the deliverables that they should be expecting to get done at certain points in their onboarding process, and not just what, but also how good. Because I think it's really easy to spiral when you're async, and you say, oh my goodness, I am not doing this one, building ads accounts or whatever as well as my peers. Andreas has been here for 2 years, and he's absolutely crushing things, and I've been here for 2 months, and I can't even hardly do this at all. And for that, we just want people to understand within this onboarding plan, this 100-day plan, we say, okay, at the 2-month mark, you should be able to do this in about this well. The quality should be about here. And that really helps avoid this spiral aspect for your async team, because they need to see where they should be at relative to their peers. And then we do lots of other stuff. We give them love from the whole team, lots of shout outs. They have onboarding buddies and kind of like forced friends, which helps them get involved too. Let's talk about how to be bonded with your team, because I think this can be a little bit difficult when you're in a totally async environment and you're not doing a whole lot of calls. We've looked at different ways to do this at Galactic Fed, and I think it can be one of the most challenging things in an async environment. But I'll share some of the things that have been most fun for us and that have been good launching off points for our team to become friends with each other. One thing I love is we do a quarterly show and tell. So a lot of companies do like a quarterly team call or status update thing. The executives, leadership will walk through a deck with the results from last quarter, and everyone will just be on Slack because it's a total snooze fest, and you could look at the slide deck later. We don't do any of that. It's 100% show and tell, where people bring a physical object from their life. So that could be a pet, a family member, a spouse, ceremonial sword collection from your family, hot sauce, cologne, surfboard. These are all things people have brought to Galactic Fed show and tells. And you spend 1 to 5 minutes just explaining why that person or thing is important to you. And what we found is this is a really great launching off point for people to jump into our affinity channels. We have channels in Slack for parenting, for pets, for photography, for travel. And if you see that you live in Portugal and Michelle also lives in Portugal and you both love to surf, well, then why not talk about in the surf channel maybe organizing a trip together? And we've had lots of times like that happen. We've had Galactic Fed people introduce their favorite tequila on calls and then do a tequila tasting thing in Mexico after. And I love that aspect of things. I think another important thing we do is every month we do a different async game. I'll give an example. This past month, it was show us your workspace setup. And so everyone in the channel would upload on Slack a photo of their workspace. So one guy had like 12 monitors, a glowing keyboard, and photos of psychedelic cats all over his wall. And he just kind of told the story of why he has that, why that inspires him. Some other person had a photo of a veranda by the beach where she sits at and works every day and told about why that inspires her. And we then vote with emojis on which is the coolest workspace setup, and whoever wins that gets some sort of small cash prize or something. And it's more than a prize, obviously. It's just this is like a window into people's real life that we're able to get by doing this. And another one we did recently was a Show Us Your Love contest. This was around Valentine's Day. So everyone uploaded a photo or a video of their family, their pets, something that's important in their life, and told the story of why they love that and maybe like the love story of how they met their partner. And spoiler alert, I do not think we had any winners on that one because comparing love isn't super great. So they were all winners for that. With that said, guys, I wanted to give a quick starter guide for how to get started with your async team. I think delete those update calls. They can probably be something in ClickUp or Slack or an email instead. Try to move your recurring calls to just 1 or 2 days per week. You can get on the Zach Wednesday setup. I only do my calls on Wednesdays, and I'm here on a Tuesday, so sometimes I will make an exception. But it gives me 6 days a week of true maker time where I'm able to get real big things done for my business. Try to make a bigger priority on writing documentation instead of always explaining things and hopping on the phone. Again, creating these blueprint docs will make your company a lot less brittle, a lot less personality dependent. And when one person needs to go on pad or mat leave, or someone's sick, or someone rage quits, or whatever might happen, you're not going to lose that institutional knowledge holder because that institutional knowledge is not in their mind, but it's on documents. And then, if you so dare, look into implementing the threat of reference check process. That's been really helpful for our company in getting a lot more honesty from candidates. And also look to do the written assessments as well, because again, that is the only check you'll get as to how they organize the written logic, which will be the primary way that people are going to be communicating with you. And with that, if anybody has any questions after this presentation, I'm going to be at the conference, so I would love to chat with you. Come up and introduce yourself. And I'm not sure if we have time for a few questions.
We do. We have time for a couple questions here.
Great.
Got them pulled up. From Daphne LaForest, and a veteran. Where's Daphne? Why do you believe in written assessment in a world where AI can really help employees better communicate in written form?
That's a great question, Daphne. So for us, I think using AI to organize your thoughts can be really helpful once people are within the company. But for us, we really want to see a good check up front of how people can perform without these tools. Because oftentimes AI tools tend to blend the way that people speak into sort of the same output. And sometimes it can be helpful to just see the real personality, because the way people write is the way they are, and it's the way they communicate. So we actually run the written assessments through like 5 different AI checking tools as well. We make it clear that we do not allow people to use AI to write them, and we allow them to say if they did use AI and which tools, like Grammarly or whatever it might be, and that's okay. But yeah, I find the written assessments really important to just see how they organize their logic. And later on, if you want to let them try using AI tools to write, that's okay, but you need that first check.
Yeah, it's sort of like a professorial approach. Where's Raj? Right?
Right.
Can't use AI on your paper, and you can on this assessment.
Exactly.
Last question, also, Daphne, bonus points. What would be your best tip to move teams from synchronous messaging to asynchronous workflows? How do you make that transition?
Another good question. I'd say some of the things that I put up on this slide here are good starts. And really, guys, even if you're not interested in being async, these are just good ways to give your team time back. And that's what async's about, right? It's important and crucial if your team is spread across time zones. But if you want to just give people time back at all, you should really try and delete these update calls. You should try and consolidate recurring internal calls to just 1 or 2 days a week. You should focus more on blueprints and documentation instead of explaining, and you should, do some other better things in your hiring process to make sure you get the right people who can be good in async setup.
Okay, round of applause for the birthday boy. Thanks, Zach.